What's up, guys? Today is the 30th of December 2025, and I'm going to be making my predictions for all of the men's champions in the UFC for the end of 2026. Before I start, for a couple of these champs, quite a few of them, I'm going to be adding a little stipulation if, let's say they're going to have a potential injury or a weight class swap or something like that, where if that's the case, I'm going to mention it and say if they can't compete in that division or they're going to leave, I'll say who I think will be champ instead, because I feel like when we're discussing this topic, it's more about who you think is going to be the best fighter at the end of the year. If there's something that we can't really predict, I think it's fair to at least mention it. But I will have like a main prediction for every single champion. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, starting us off, flyweight. I've got Pantoja. I know a lot of people probably think he's going to still be injured, and he's old for a flyweight or a lower weight class fighter in general. I think he's going to recover. He didn't really seem to be taking too much damage in his fights. He didn't seem to be slowing down. I didn't get that kind of late Tony Ferguson career vibe. He seemed to just be going from strength to strength. So I'm not going to count him out. It is a bad injury, but he has quite a lot of time to recover before the end of 2026. And even though I imagine Dana probably doesn't want him as champ very much, he definitely will get a title shot, and I think there'll be outrage if he didn't. He's a dominant champion, and I think people have... he's grown on a lot of people. If he doesn't recover from his injury, and he can't fight in 2026, I've got Tatsuro Taira. I think it'll be Taira or it'll be Manel Cap. But I don't think it will be Joshua Van. I think both of them are better than Joshua Van. I don't really know how good Joshua Van's submission defense is. I think his takedown defense is good. We've seen that demonstrated a few times. But when he's on the ground, I'm not so sure. And Taira just finished Brandon Moreno on the ground, and he's a good grappler. So I don't think that bodes well. I think his advantage, Taira's advantage in the grappling is more significant than, I would say, Joshua Van's edge in the striking, because his boxing is very, very good. So I'm going for Taira. Obviously, he's young, but I don't think he's green anymore. He's beating the best people in the division. This was quite a hard pick, either him or Manel Cap. Manel Cap did just get a first round finish though, so he could be prioritized for a title shot. But I really think that if it isn't Pantoja, because I do think a healthy Pantoja is the best fighter in the division, if it's not him, it's either going to be Tatsuro Taira or Manel Cap. But I'm gonna back Pantoja to get the belt back, and I also kind of want him to, because I think he deserves the credit. Okay. Bantamweight. Got Petr Yan. I think most people think he's the best fighter in the division. He's been a little bit injury prone over his career, but assuming that he's healthy, and I think there'll be a decent wait between his next fight, which will almost certainly be against Merab. It would be crazy if it wasn't for Merab. That would be terrible. I think he'll win. And I actually think it will be closer than their last fight, because I think Merab will come back with a vengeance. But if Yan is on form, I think he is the best bantamweight in the world. He's very how do I describe him? He's really good, but he has to fight perfectly to beat Merab. Like when I'm watching him, he's so disciplined, and if he wasn't like that, he would lose. Whereas Merab's fighting style is not a perfectionist style. He makes little slip ups, but he has this, overpowering single factor in his cardio and conditioning, which makes up for that. Whereas Yan is a technician, and he's very, very patient. He's very intelligent, and he rarely goes for foolish moves or gets kind of bloodlusted. He's very disciplined. So I think he's going to win again. I'm hoping he doesn't get injured so they can have a fair fight. Yeah. On to the next one. Featherweight. I got Volk. It's hard to predict what Volk's going to be like at this age, but he didn't really look deteriorated, in my opinion, against Diego Lopez. Perhaps his chin, but I think Diego Lopez also just hits very hard. So, I don't think that's shocking that he dropped him if he landed a clean hit. I'm terrified for his fight against Diego Lopez, his second one. I think it's bullshit. I don't think it should happen. He's already beaten him. We've got undefeated prospects in Lerone Murphy, in, of course, Movsar Evloev, who's now 18-0 and has beaten Aljamain Sterling and Diego Lopez, even though Diego Lopez was very early in his UFC career. But it's still important. So I think he'll beat Diego, and I think if he gets matched up against Movsar Evloev, which he should, he'll beat him. I think Volk improves a lot in rematches. I know that sounds bad thinking about Islam Makhachev, but that's a special occasion because Islam's the best fighter in the world, arguably, and he took it on very short notice, so we'll give him a pass for that one. But like the Max Holloway trilogy, when he fought someone who's not known to hit very hard, he just getting. Well, I wouldn't say he got better and better, because his best performance was his last, but the second one was a very close fight. But I think he should do well against Diego. I think he'll learn things, but I'm still really scared because he's getting older, and I know if he gets clipped badly, it could be that, and I don't want to see that again, man. Like, we all love Volk. I want to see him go out, ride off into the sunset. I wish he'd retire, but part of the reason he's good is because he's not the kind of guy to throw in the towel like that. So you got to deal with stuff like that if you're a Volkanovski fan. If he does retire, and I'm assuming that he wins and retires, not loses and retires, because if he loses, then I'd pick whoever beat him. I've got Movsar, because if he fights Diego Lopez won't get another title shot. Hopefully, that would be awful if he did. They'll finally have to pick Movsar versus somebody else for the title, maybe Lerone Murphy, in which case I think Movsar is the next best featherweight in the world, so I think he would win. I really like Gene Silva as well, but obviously because he lost by finish to Diego Lopez, he's probably going to have to get a few more wins, and it's unlikely that that'll happen within the next calendar year, maybe near the end, but I think the best pick, in my opinion, is Movsar if Volk chooses to retire. Okay. Lightweight. Topuria doesn't have to defend his belt for the first half because he's going through his personal problems, of course. Hope he gets through that all right, if he's innocent. So we've got the interim fight between Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje. I think he would mop both of them. I think he's the best fighter in the world. I think he's a little bit better than Islam, just a little bit. Yeah, I don't think there's any lightweight that beats him. I think he'd finish everyone. Maybe Arman would survive a 5-rounder, but I think he'd probably knock Arman out as well. Yeah, not much to say about this. I don't have any extra. Second fighter, I think he's the best. End of story. Welterweight. Islam. I think Islam is more likely to lose his title than Topuria is. I think he's slightly less dominant in the division, although it's pretty early to say something like that. I think his toughest fight would probably be Shavkat Rakhmonov, or maybe if Ian Gary fought very, very scared, he could win like a pit-a-pat decision where he just throwed out lots of very safe low kicks and low commitment jabs, things like that. But I'm not going to bet on it, and I really rate Jack Della Maddalena, and he beat him easily. And Jack couldn't really get his striking going. So, if you think about how well Jack did against Bilal, and then how well Ian Gary did against Bilal, which was, they were kind of relative to one another in terms of their performance. They both clearly won, but they weren't, completely destroying them. It was a confident victory. That's how I kind of envision Islam doing against the best people in the division. Michael Morales is a bit of a wild card. Like, I'm not really sure how he'll do, because obviously Sean Brady's a very good grappler, but I still don't think he's on the level of Islam Makhachev. So I'm going with my gut, and I don't think this is a particularly controversial pick. Islam Makhachev. Middleweight. Khamzat Chimaev. I keep going through these saying this guy's dominant, this guy's dominant, this guy's dominant. This guy's really dominant. I don't have anyone beating Khamzat. I wouldn't even have anyone beating Khamzat in a 3-rounder either. Actually, they've probably got a better shot in a 5-rounder, because at least if they survive, then they can win a few of the last rounds. Maybe he similar to when he fought, what's his face? Kamaru Usman. Perhaps, he 10-8s them in the first round and then wins the second, and then they could win 3 10-9s in a row and get a decision victory or a draw or something. But even with that said, I don't think his cardio's that bad. I think he's just been a bit reckless in the past because he's so much better than people that he thought that he could just kind of walk through them and get them out easily. I actually don't think his cardio's as bad as people say it is. And I'd say that the recent title performance against Dricus du Plessis reflects that. Now, I know that Khamzat Chimaev wants to move divisions. I don't think the UFC will want him to, because he's a fresh champ. Perhaps maybe the White House card might affect that. We'll see. If he does move divisions, I've got Dricus. Now, I've thought about this. So, his next title fight will almost certainly be against Nassourdine Imavov, which I think he'll win. So, if he beats Nassourdine is not a massive pay-per-view star, so he probably won't get the next title shot. It'll probably be Dricus, and then, I don't know, maybe Anthony Hernandez, maybe Brendan Allen. Like, it's a rough show, but in terms of like recent years performances by middleweights, if we eliminate Nassourdine, because he will have just lost if Khamzat moves, I'm really confident he'll beat Nassourdine. Then the two next people they'll pick will probably be Dricus. He finished Izzy, he finished Robert Whittaker. He had a close fight with Strickland, but then the second one he dominated him. So I think he's got to be a pick if Khamzat moved divisions. If he didn't, then they definitely wouldn't pick Dricus for a title shot because of how uncompetitive the first fight was. But if he does, he's probably going to be the next one in line to go for the championship. And I think I have him beating every other middleweight other than Khamzat Chimaev, which is crazy to say considering his last performance, but that more speaks to how I view Khamzat rather than, what I think of Dricus. It's just Dricus has done well against these other champions in recent times. He's very, very tough. I think maybe Hernandez could give him a run for his money. He's absolutely beatable, but yeah, that's about it for middleweight. So light heavyweight, I got Pereira. This one's a bit shaky because Pereira seems to be moving in lots of different directions. I know he had that tweet he had a while ago, which he then claimed, I think his account got hacked, where he was sort of criticising the UFC. it didn't look like a fake tweet. It looked like a real tweet. It didn't seem very kind of rage baity. I thought it was a real tweet. I think he said recently that the UFC doesn't want him to fight on the White House card, or it's looking like he's not going to. If he did, it would probably be a heavyweight fight. I don't think that Pereira will move to heavyweight this year. If he doesn't, I think he's still the best light heavyweight in the world. They certainly won't want to give Magomed Ankalaev another title shot because they don't want him to be champ because he's Russian, let's be honest. Yuri has lost to him twice. I think Olberg is the only person who can give him a run for his money. Well, not a run for his money, but has a good chance of beating him because Olberg's very fast and is also a kickboxer. So he's good in the areas where Alex Pereira finishes most people. If he does retire or move divisions, I've got Yuri Prochazka. Obviously, Yuri's very, very entertaining, so he's got a good chance of getting another title shot. He's on a 2-fight finish streak. He's also, never had a decision, win or loss in the UFC. So the UFC would definitely be keen to give him a title shot if Alex Pereira moved divisions or retired. And he's also the rank 1 contender joined with Magomed Ankalaev. So that would be my second pick. But yeah, if Pereira doesn't move, I think he should remain champ. I think he's one of those fighters that just seems to kind of defy aging. He slowed down a little bit, but I think that's mainly because he moved divisions. Yeah, that's about it. I think Jan Blachowicz would probably still have like a somewhat close fight with him, but I don't see any reason why he'd win because Pereira's settled into the weight class and Jan's just getting older and older. So, I think he would just lose worse. I think he'd survive in a 3-rounder, but in a 5-rounder he might get finished later on by Pereira. So that's my opinion. Heavyweight, Tom Aspinall. Heavyweight's terrible. Heavyweights suck. People definitely exaggerated how well Cyril Gane was doing in his first and only round with Tom Aspinall. He did well, and I definitely would give him a 10-9. He was winning the round, but it wasn't the domination that people were saying. I think it's more just because of the expectations people had of Tom with his comparisons to John Jones and the fact that John Jones had fought Cyril Gane and beat him very easily. This was inevitable. We knew this comparison was going to happen. Assuming that Tom recovers all right, and I think he will. I still pick him to beat Cyril Gane, carrying his new rage for the Frenchman. Yeah, I could see Pereira moving up. If Pereira moved up, I think Pereira would be dangerous and could definitely beat Tom. I know some people don't feel that way, but I've seen Pereira weigh himself when he's kind of out of camp. He didn't really look that fat, but he weighed 240. So if he made a conscious effort to bulk up to heavyweight, I don't think he'll be a small heavyweight at all. I think he'll be a fairly average-sized heavyweight. And most of the heavyweights in general are just fat middleweights and not welterweight. I mean, some of them. Fat middleweights and fat light heavyweights. So, I don't think that's that ridiculous. And, with Pereira fighting both at light heavyweight and middleweight, that's a lot of that lighter man skill he's going to be bringing. So it's definitely doable. But the grappling would obviously be very hard. Okay, that's it. Here are all my champ predictions for the end of the year. And looking at them now, I can see that they're all the same as they are at the moment, other than Pantoja, who's obviously had an unfortunate injury. Yeah, that's about it. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me know your predictions for the champions at the end of the year. and I'll beat you because my predictions are better. Have a good day.